See, what we're dealing with here, people, is a ventilation of planet Earth. So you got lighter white clouds, and there's not as many clouds, and you have ventilation, and you have cool air and shade. See, when you have too much clouds and they're dark, and the sunlight dries it out, and then they dissipate, and they dry up and they dissipate because it's too much heat on top of the clouds. And then you got all the heat underneath the clouds on planet Earth. So that's dissipating the clouds and drying them out. That's why more cloudage doesn't work. You know, not on hot days. When it's like really hot, you gotta have ventilation, not so many clouds, and they're white and they're lighter. Or they could be dark, I guess. I don't know. But you know, they're not conducting as much heat. You know, they're not absorbing as much heat though. So they don't dry up and dissipate into the atmosphere like if it was really cloudy and then it's absorbing all this heat and then it dries up and it dissipates. You know, you gotta have ventilation, like I said in my other video about venting, having ventilation and stuff like that, and coolant and circulation and stuff like that, circulating and keeping it cool for the planet, you know? So that's why in your cities with all your smog and all your pollution and all of that conducting heat, and that's conducting heat, and that's drying up the atmosphere and everything. And then you got the heat from the sun, which is hitting that, and then that's making that hotter on top. So you got that on top of it, and then you got the heat that you're conducting with pollution, and planet Earth is conducting its own heat. So you also have all of that heat, you know. So you gotta understand the process here of what it is, you know, what you're dealing with, and that is heat and drying up and dissipating, you know. And then there's no clouds, so then it's hot, then the sun is shining, and then you got the sun shining, and then you got all the heat, then you got that heat, and then the planet's heat, and then you got the pollution heat, and that's all heat, man. And that heat makes heat hotter. You know, when you got heat and heat, it just gets hotter, because that's what heat does. Just like cold. If you got cold and cold, it gets colder. You know what I'm saying? So, goodbye. And also, no, never mind. Bye.